Chapter 1. Time is not running out, you are giving it away. Let's get something straight from the beginning. This is not another motivational speech full of clichés telling you to wake up at 5 a.m. and hustle harder than everyone else. This is a complete mental reset about your relationship with time. In this chapter, we're going to break down one core truth that will change everything. Time is not running out, you are giving it away. This isn't about how many hours you have. It's about what you're allowing to consume those hours. Before we go deep, remember to like and subscribe if you're ready to finally take control of your time, instead of letting your time control you. What you're about to hear is not hype. It's structure. And structure is the secret to freedom. Let's begin. You don't have a time management problem. You have an attention management problem. You don't need another calendar, another productivity app, or a new method of color-coding your tasks. What you need is a radical shift in how you perceive the value of your time and what you permit to have access to it. Every minute you spend is a trade. A trade for focus, for energy, for direction, for peace, or for distraction, confusion, and regret. And until you treat time as the most expensive resource in your life, you'll keep giving it away like it's disposable. Time doesn't disappear. You hand it out in small, unconscious ways. You hand it to pointless conversations. You hand it to people who don't respect your boundaries. You hand it to indecision, overthinking, emotional loops, constant checking of your phone, comparison, and mental clutter. And what do you get in return? A sense of being behind. A sense of pressure. A feeling that you can't catch up. But the problem isn't that time ran out, it's that you leaked it. Rule number 1. Stop acting like time owes you anything. It doesn't. Time is neutral. It does not care how you feel. It does not pause for your emotions. It does not wait for your motivation to return. It moves. Quietly. Relentlessly. Precisely. And your relationship with it determines your results. So start respecting it like it's sacred. Because it is. You respect time by tracking it. By observing where it goes. By protecting it from people who drain it. By prioritizing what builds you and eliminating what distracts you. The best time managers are not robots. They're people who decided to stop negotiating with excuses. They're not superhuman. They're intentional. They don't let the morning decide how the day will go. They decide. They set the tone. And they do it again and again until it becomes a pattern too strong to break. Time management is not about cramming more into your schedule. It's about being honest about what actually matters. Most people don't need more hours, they need more clarity. When you lack clarity, everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. You react instead of decide. You jump from task to task hoping that productivity will fix your sense of chaos. But productivity without purpose is just glorified distraction. You're busy, but not effective. You're exhausted, but not accomplished. That's not how masters use time. Clarity comes when you know exactly what you're building, why you're building it, and what does not belong in your field of focus. That's how you begin to reverse the feeling of being overwhelmed. You don't fight time, you organize it. You don't wish for more hours, you eliminate the habits that drain the ones you have. You don't obsess over doing more, you get precise about what moves the needle and what doesn't. If you can't name your priorities in 5 seconds, you don't have any. If you don't know your non-negotiables, someone else is scheduling your life. If your calendar doesn't match your goals, your time will be hijacked by things that feel important but solve nothing. This is where most people get trapped. They confuse movement with progress. But real time management is about building momentum in the direction that actually leads somewhere. You don't rise by doing more. You rise by doing less of what doesn't align. You rise by removing the noise. By editing your day like your future depends on it, because it does. If you keep letting distractions, unimportant obligations, and random interruptions rule your hours, you will keep living in reaction. And a reactive life is a wasted one. It's filled with emotional noise, false urgency, decision fatigue, and regret disguised as routine. Your schedule is a mirror of your values. Don't tell me you value growth if you haven't carved out time to read, reflect, or plan. Don't say you're serious about change when your calendar is still ruled by habits that belong to the old version of you. Don't claim you're committed when your mornings begin with distractions and your evenings end in mindless scrolling. Time doesn't lie. Your use of it reveals everything. The greatest shift you can make is this: you stop treating time like a storage container and start treating it like a building block. It's not something you fill. It's something you shape. Every minute is part of your structure. Every hour is a piece of your foundation. And that foundation must be built with intention, not convenience. You don't get a second life to use time better. You get one life to get radically clear about how you use it now. When someone asks for your time, they're asking for your life. Not metaphorically, literally. Because time is the currency of life. Every yes you give costs you a piece of focus. Every delay drains your drive. Every excuse steals your own momentum. Until you understand that, you'll keep living like time is free. But it's the most expensive thing you'll ever own. And most people are broke and don't even know it. Here's a truth most won't say out loud. People who can't manage their time usually don't value their own future. Because if you really respected where you're going, you would guard every minute that shapes it. You would not trade your mornings for mindless habits. You would not let your afternoons be dictated by other people's emergencies. You would not let your evenings disappear into meaningless consumption. You would treat every hour like it's gold, and you'd act like someone who's building something that can't afford to be delayed. Time is not your problem. Ownership is. Structure is. Emotional regulation is. Most time problems are really self-leadership problems. You don't know how to say no because you fear being disliked. You don't plan because you fear commitment. You don't track your hours because you're afraid to see how much you've already wasted. And until you face that, you'll stay stuck pretending that time is the enemy, when the truth is, you just haven't taken authority over it yet. You must reclaim that authority. That starts now. Not by doing everything at once, but by asking one clear question: what would someone who truly values their time do today? Ask it before every choice. Ask it when you want to say yes to something out of guilt. Ask it when you're about to lose another hour to distraction. Ask it when you feel overwhelmed, not knowing where to start. The answer will always be obvious if you're honest. The problem is never time. It's how honest you're willing to be about how you're using it. Chapter 2. You don't manage time with willpower. You manage it with systems. Willpower is unstable. It's based on mood, energy levels, and emotional states that fluctuate throughout the day. Systems, on the other hand, are steady. They remove the decision-making burden and allow consistency to take the place of discipline. The mistake most people make is thinking they need to feel ready to act. They wait for motivation to show up. They wait for energy to be high. They wait for life to slow down. But people who master time know that momentum doesn't come from feelings. It comes from structure. Structure eliminates the need to wake up and ask, "What should I do today?" That question is a trap. It opens the door for chaos, for distraction, for misalignment, and for other people's priorities to invade your day. The moment you begin your day in reaction, you lose control of how that time unfolds. Systems protect you from that spiral. Systems remove the uncertainty that keeps most people stuck in cycles of busyness without direction. A strong time system starts with rhythm. Not rigid schedules packed with endless blocks, but rhythm, recurring anchors in your day that remind your body, your mind, and your focus where to go. Morning anchors. Evening anchors. Non-negotiables. Daily reset points. You don't need to micromanage your entire calendar. You need to identify the moments that dictate the rest of your behavior. If your morning is chaotic, don't be surprised if the rest of your day follows that same tone. If your night ends in consumption, don't expect to wake up sharp. Time management begins with behavioral sequence, not with to-do lists. People want complex strategies because they're addicted to complication. But the most effective systems are boring. Simple check-ins. Small lists. Tight commitments. Clear blocks. They're not flashy. They're not exciting. They don't feel like a breakthrough. But they keep you moving when inspiration disappears. And inspiration always disappears. Which is why professionals don't rely on it. They rely on systems that work regardless of how they feel. Track your time and your time will reveal your patterns. Don't just plan your day, review it. Not to judge yourself. To observe. To understand. To adjust. Time feedback is your most valuable data. When you stop guessing how your day went and start measuring it, you begin to see the holes in your structure. You begin to see where your energy crashes, where distraction creeps in, where you lose hours without noticing. And once you see the patterns, you're no longer a victim of your time, you become an architect. Stop trying to remember everything. Externalize your mind. Write things down. Don't let mental clutter steal your focus. Every open loop in your mind is a tab that drains your clarity. The more you carry in your head, the less bandwidth you have to execute. People who manage their time well don't trust their memory, they trust their system. They write down their thoughts. They plan their week. They track their tasks. Not because they're obsessive, but because they respect their attention. You cannot respect your time without respecting your attention. Every notification, every open browser tab, every constant switch between tasks fractures your focus. And fractured focus always costs more than wasted time. Because you may think you're working, but if your attention is scattered, the quality of that work is weak. Attention residue is real. Every time you switch tasks, you lose momentum. Every time you check your phone during a focus block, you dilute your ability to think clearly. So if you're serious about managing time, you must start managing your inputs. Inputs shape outcomes. Your energy, your thoughts, your performance, your decisions, all of it is influenced by what you allow into your space. You cannot claim to value your time and still allow low-quality inputs to rule your environment. You must protect your focus like it's sacred. Because it is. When your focus is clean, you move faster, you decide faster, you execute with clarity. And when your focus is constantly interrupted, you waste more time regaining your concentration than you ever will on your calendar. Audit your digital life. Audit your environment. Audit your habits. Not to restrict yourself, but to upgrade your internal signal. A distracted environment will always create a distracted mind. You need to clear the clutter. You need to build friction against things that waste your attention. Make distraction inconvenient. Turn off automatic logins. Remove apps that serve no purpose. Set rules for when and how you check your phone. The more intentional your systems, the less you'll rely on willpower. And don't confuse discipline with rigidity. Discipline is flexible. It adapts. It learns. But it does not disappear the moment things get uncomfortable. People who build time systems don't do the same thing every day. They simply never allow chaos to dictate what matters. They adjust. They update their rhythm. But they never abandon the system. They don't cancel their non-negotiables because they feel off. They don't let the day run them. They stay rooted in their rhythm. And that rhythm becomes their leverage. The best time systems are personal. They match your energy, your goals, your personality. There is no one-size-fits-all formula. But there is a universal truth. Inconsistency is expensive. The more often you fall off your system, the more time you waste recovering. Recovery time is the hidden cost nobody talks about. It's not the one bad day that ruins your week, it's the 3 days you spend getting back on track. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. A simple system done every day beats a complex system abandoned after 3 days. Build a system around you, not around an idealized version of you. Stop creating plans that only work on your best days. Plan for reality. Design for imperfection. Make it hard to fail. Give yourself fewer options. Simplicity is what builds momentum. The less friction between intention and action, the faster you move. The less negotiation between tasks, the more consistent your output. The less clutter in your environment, the more clarity in your execution. Time systems don't need to be beautiful, they need to be effective. Start small. One daily anchor. One focus block. One system for capturing your ideas. One method for closing your day with intention. That's how systems grow. One layer at a time. You don't need a complete overhaul. You need one piece that works. Then another. Then another. Stack wins. Stack rhythm. Stack behaviors. Before long, your days begin to shape themselves. You stop reacting. You stop chasing time. You become predictable, not to others, but to yourself. That predictability builds confidence. Confidence builds momentum. And momentum turns into mastery. Chapter 3. You don't run out of time. You run out of focus. There is no such thing as not having enough time for the things that matter. There is only misalignment between what you say you value and what your behavior shows. The truth is brutal and simple. If it's important, it gets done. Not because it's easy, not because you have free time, but because you make it non-negotiable. And if something is consistently delayed, if it's always pushed to the side, if it never finds its way onto your calendar, it means one of two things. Either it doesn't actually matter to you or your priorities are being hijacked by invisible distractions you haven't taken the time to remove. Distraction is not just what steals your attention in obvious ways. It's what numbs you into repeating patterns that give you the illusion of productivity while keeping you stuck in place. It's not just social media or random scrolling. It's emotional loops. It's compulsive overthinking. It's mental rehearsals of conversations that never happened. It's worrying about things that are none of your business. It's repeatedly checking things that don't need your energy. It's saying yes when you know you should say no. It's carrying invisible to-do lists in your head instead of processing and planning them. These are the real-time thieves. And they don't show up as chaos. They show up as habits that you've normalized. People who master time don't avoid all distraction. They identify it early. They build awareness around it. They pause the moment they notice their attention shifting. They don't let thoughts snowball. They don't let emotions drag them out of structure. They don't allow every impulse to become an action. They learn to recognize the moment their focus starts leaking and they course correct. Not with guilt. Not with self-criticism. With precision. You have to decide what deserves your attention and then become militant about protecting it. You have to choose the signal and mute the noise. Most people never stop to ask what their primary signal is. They don't define their top priorities. They don't clarify the core actions that drive their goals. And because of that, they live in default mode, constantly pulled by what's loud, what's urgent, what's emotionally charged, what's easiest to react to in the moment. And they wonder why their time disappears. It disappears into decisions that were never theirs to make. You will not win with time until you own your mind. Until you train your awareness to track where your focus goes, you'll continue being a victim of the day instead of the author of it. Time cannot be managed by someone who hasn't learned to manage their attention. You cannot expect your calendar to be aligned when your thinking isn't. The moment you lose clarity, your time gets sold to the highest bidder. And usually that bidder is anxiety, or people-pleasing, or fatigue, or habit. And none of those bidders care about your purpose. Start measuring your day in terms of quality attention. Not just hours. Not just tasks. Not just checkboxes. Quality attention means you were present. You were clear. You were focused on what mattered most. You weren't scattered, spinning, multitasking to the point of numbness. You were intentional. Even for short windows of time. 10 minutes of laser focus is more productive than 2 hours of distracted effort. When your mind is clean, your time compounds. When your mind is cluttered, your time disappears without trace. Multitasking is the lie productivity sold to people who are afraid of stillness. The idea that you can effectively do 5 things at once is a trap. You're not doing 5 things. You're switching rapidly between 5 things, burning mental energy every time you shift. That switch tax is real. It wears down your clarity. It reduces your ability to make decisions. It increases stress and decreases satisfaction. You may feel like you're busy, but you're not effective. And time rewards effectiveness, not movement. The more fragmented your attention, the more time slips through your hands. Focus is how you reclaim it. Focus is how you stretch time. Focus is how you do more in less time without burning out. But focus cannot survive in an environment where everything has equal importance. You have to rank your work. You have to choose what matters most. You have to stop saying yes to things that are urgent but meaningless. You have to get ruthless about filtering. Because if you don't filter, your time will be spent reacting instead of creating. This is why clarity must come before action. Action without clarity is noise. You do a lot and achieve little. You spin but don't progress. You stay busy enough to feel productive, but not focused enough to build anything lasting. Before you touch your task list, ask the question, what will move the needle? That question eliminates half your distractions. If the task doesn't move the needle, delegate it, schedule it later, or delete it. Time is not a storage bin. It's a pipeline. Keep it clean. Keep your planning process brutally honest. You don't need a 50-item task list. You need 5 things that actually matter and the emotional discipline to protect your time from the other 45. You don't need a new app. You need to stop overcommitting. You need to stop pretending that you can do it all. You need to stop pretending that every request is an emergency. You need to stop managing your time around other people's inability to plan. Saying yes when you mean no is time management suicide. Every unnecessary yes is a tax on your future. Every overcommitment you make today becomes a crisis you have to manage tomorrow. And most of the people you're overcommitting for will not remember the sacrifice. They'll forget the favor. But you won't. Because you'll feel it in your calendar. In your body. In your stress. In your resentment. You cannot serve from depletion. You cannot lead from exhaustion. You cannot manage time while trying to be everything for everyone. You don't need permission to protect your time. You don't need people to understand your boundaries. You don't need to justify clarity to people who thrive on confusion. Your time is your responsibility. Nobody else will value it more than you do. And the moment you stop apologizing for your structure is the moment you step into ownership. Because ownership is what separates the overwhelmed from the effective. It's not about having more time. It's about using the time you have with zero tolerance for what dilutes your direction. Build a time map. Not just a schedule. A map of where your energy flows. A map of when you work best. A map of your creative windows, your focus zones, your ideal work cycles. You must learn your own rhythm or you'll keep borrowing someone else's plan and wondering why it doesn't work. Time management is personal. It must reflect your real energy, your real values, your real priorities. Not what sounds good, not what works for someone else, not what fits into a perfect routine someone shared on social media. Once you know your rhythm, protect it like it's sacred. Stop scheduling meetings during your focus window. Stop checking messages during your thinking blocks. Stop building your day around low-impact work. Put your best energy where it matters most. Not where it's convenient. Not where it's easy. Where it creates results. Your time doesn't lie. If it's not producing results, it's revealing misalignment. Track that. Study that. Use it to design something smarter. Chapter 4. You can't manage what you don't measure. Most people think they know how they spend their time. They don't. They guess. They assume. They estimate. They remember the big things and forget the small leaks. But time doesn't disappear in massive blocks. It disappears in 5-minute decisions, 2-minute distractions, 10-second choices that compound silently throughout the day. If you're serious about using time wisely, you must track it with precision. Not to become obsessed, but to become aware. Because awareness is the first layer of control. You don't rise into mastery by guessing. You rise by understanding exactly what pulls your attention, where your focus cracks, when your energy drops, and how long things really take. Until you see those numbers in front of you, most of your frustration will come from false expectations and false assumptions. You'll keep building plans that don't match your real patterns. You'll keep underestimating how much time you give away to things that aren't aligned. You'll keep wondering why you're tired even though you only had 2 meetings. But it wasn't just the meetings. It was the mental residue from the 20 things you never wrote down, the interruptions you didn't protect yourself from, the tasks you tried to multitask, the tabs you kept open in the background. Track your time and the truth will emerge. Not the imagined version of your day, but the real one. The one where you notice that your deep work only lasts 20 minutes before distraction shows up. The one where your energy is best between 9 and 11, yet you use that time to answer emails instead of build. The one where your night routine is not a routine at all, it's just you collapsing after hours of managing everything except your own mind. You don't change these patterns through motivation. You change them through data. Create a simple system. Nothing complex. You don't need a fancy app. You need a notebook, a spreadsheet, a voice memo, something that captures the truth. Segment your day into blocks and document what you actually do, not what you intended. Write it down in real time if you can. Review it at the end of the day. Study it at the end of the week. Don't judge yourself. Observe. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for leverage. Every insight is leverage. Every repeated pattern is a message. The moment you know where your time is leaking, you stop blaming time. You start fixing structure. You start reclaiming attention. You stop thinking that you need more hours and start seeing how much you've already wasted on misalignment. That is when power returns. Not when you try to be perfect, but when you get so honest with yourself that wasting time becomes uncomfortable. Because awareness without change creates pain. But awareness followed by action builds momentum. Once you know your time blocks, start assigning them based on energy. Time alone doesn't produce results. Energy does. 1 hour of focused, rested, calm energy will always outperform 3 hours of scattered, depleted, anxious movement. Learn your rhythms. When do you feel mentally clear? When does your focus drop? When do you need breaks? When do you procrastinate? When does your mind try to avoid tasks that require depth? These aren't random fluctuations. These are patterns you can plan around. Time management isn't just about blocking hours, it's about aligning energy with tasks. You don't do your most creative work when you're drained. You don't do shallow admin work in your peak focus window. You don't force your mind to perform when your body is screaming for rest. This is why managing time is really about managing attention and energy together. They're not separate. You schedule based on both. You optimize your day not just to do more, but to do the right things at the right time. Most people waste their best energy on the wrong priorities. They check messages, scroll timelines, clean their inbox, watch videos, attend reactive meetings, and respond to everyone else's noise, during the time of day when they could have created something meaningful. And then when their energy dips, they try to force themselves to perform, but the fuel is gone. The focus is broken. The system is already misaligned. And they blame themselves for not being disciplined enough, when the truth is, the structure never gave them a chance. Protect your peak hours. Lock them in. Guard them like sacred territory. Use them for work that demands depth. Use them for decisions that shape direction. Use them for building, thinking, creating, writing, moving the needle. Don't waste those hours in meetings. Don't give them away to shallow work. Don't sacrifice them for things that can be done when your energy is lower. Because once you give away that high-quality time, you can't get it back. And it's not just about the work itself. It's about how many transitions you allow. Every time you switch context, you lose time. Your brain doesn't instantly reset. It drags thoughts from the last task into the new one. That drag slows you down, breaks flow, adds mental noise. The fewer transitions, the more effective your time. Batch your work. Group similar tasks. Avoid random switches. Create sequences that flow naturally. One focus block for creation. One block for communication. One for review. One for planning. Stop letting your day be a random assortment of reactions. Plan your day the night before. Don't leave it to chance. Don't let the morning decide. Don't let your inbox tell you what to do. You should wake up and know exactly what your top 3 moves are. Not 10. Not 20. 3. Clarity kills chaos. When you decide in advance, you remove the emotion from the moment. You don't need to feel like doing it, you just do it because it's the next move. And when you build your life around clear next moves instead of random emotional reactions, you become efficient, grounded, calm, and focused. And stop trying to do everything. Time doesn't reward those who try to do more. Time rewards those who master what matters. If everything is a priority, nothing is. You cannot build depth in 10 directions at once. You need to choose. You need to focus. You need to let go of the illusion that multitasking will save you. It won't. It's costing you more than you realize. It's breaking your flow, confusing your nervous system, draining your clarity, and producing shallow output that leads to constant rework. You want to reclaim your time? Get rid of fake work. Stop measuring success by how busy you look. Start measuring it by the quality of the outcomes you create. Look at your calendar and ask what actually moves your goals forward. Then eliminate the rest. Automate what doesn't require your creativity. Delegate what someone else can do faster. Batch what drains you. Simplify what feels overwhelming. The more you streamline, the more you sharpen. The more you sharpen, the more time expands. Chapter 5. You are not overwhelmed because you have too much to do. You are overwhelmed because you haven't decided what actually matters. Most people live in a constant state of reaction. They answer everything. They try to fix everything. They say yes to everything. And in doing so, they dilute themselves until there's nothing left for what truly requires their full presence. Overwhelm is not the result of too many demands, it is the result of too few boundaries. It is what happens when you avoid deciding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. The truth is that not everything deserves a response. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every opportunity is worth chasing. The most powerful way to reclaim your time is to get brutally clear on what is essential and eliminate what is not. Essentialism is not minimalism. It is focus. It is structure. It is filtering your obligations through a lens so precise that only the highest impact actions remain. It means you stop being available for the unnecessary. You stop being accessible to everything that interrupts your rhythm. You stop entertaining decisions that should already be automatic. It means you no longer base your schedule on convenience, you build it around clarity. The people who manage time at the highest level are not more disciplined than you. They are simply more decisive. They don't spend 2 hours thinking about things they already know they're not doing. They don't mentally rehearse a decision 10 times before acting on it. They don't let emotional guilt drag them into commitments they never agreed to. They make the decision, they move, and they protect that movement. Time multiplies for those who don't waste it in indecision. If your days are filled with hesitation, mental loops, delayed responses, emotional weight around every small request, you will constantly feel like you don't have enough time, because your cognitive bandwidth is being spent managing noise instead of directing energy. The skill of time compression comes down to one question: can you act on what you already know without waiting for comfort? That's the edge. That's the separator. Because if you already know what you need to do, but you keep waiting for motivation or perfect conditions or total certainty, you are wasting the most valuable thing you have. Time doesn't need you to be certain. It needs you to commit. It needs you to act without delay. The longer you wait, the more resistance builds. The more you negotiate, the more mental clutter takes over. The more you hesitate, the more energy leaks. You must learn to reduce decisions. Not by avoiding responsibility, but by creating systems that remove the need to decide repeatedly. Decide once. Then automate. Then standardize. Then enforce. The energy you use to make the same small decision daily, what to wear, what to eat, what task to do first, when to start your day, that energy compounds. And it compounds in the wrong direction. It creates fatigue before you even begin your deep work. So the best decision makers reduce decision fatigue by setting rules. Not rigid rules, clear ones. No meetings before 10. Deep work in the morning. Phone off during creation. Planning every Sunday night. Reviewing every Friday. These rules don't limit freedom. They create it. Freedom does not come from having more time. It comes from removing the invisible friction that steals your energy. Friction is in the hesitation. In the distractions. In the tasks that linger on your to-do list for weeks because you refuse to confront them. In the emotional noise you carry about saying no. In the guilt you feel for prioritizing yourself. Friction is what stops flow. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, constantly pulling you out of rhythm until the whole day feels disjointed. And the only way to eliminate friction is to simplify, systemize, and act quickly on what's already clear. Acting quickly is not rushing. It's moving before doubt builds. It's respecting clarity enough to trust it. It's learning the difference between procrastination disguised as planning and real preparation. Many people say they're planning when they're just avoiding the discomfort of execution. They say they're being strategic when they're just scared to commit. But nothing changes until action becomes immediate. Speed doesn't mean careless. It means precise. It means taking the next aligned step before you talk yourself out of it. Speed is how you stay ahead of overwhelm. Because overwhelm grows in the space between clarity and action. If something takes less than 5 minutes, do it immediately. Don't log it. Don't move it. Don't plan it. Just do it. Micro-actions build momentum. Momentum reduces resistance. And resistance is the real cost. Not the time itself, but the weight of thinking about it over and over. That weight slows down everything else. Clear it. Move it. Finish it. Stop adding emotional drama to tasks that require none. You don't need to feel inspired to send an email. You don't need to wait for a perfect vibe to clean your workspace. You don't need to be in a high-frequency state to clear small items. Do the work. Move forward. Move your body first. Movement creates motion. Stillness breeds mental noise. If you feel stuck, move. Stand. Walk. Stretch. Shake off the mental residue. Physical motion resets cognitive load. It reconnects you to clarity. Sitting still, staring at a screen, waiting for the task to get easier, is a waste of time. Start moving and watch how quickly your mindset catches up. You'll rarely think your way into clarity. You will almost always act your way into it. The mind follows motion. So let your body lead when the thoughts are stuck. You must get ruthless with your environment. You cannot expect to stay focused in a space that's designed for distraction. Everything in your environment is either supporting your time structure or breaking it. Cluttered desk, open tabs, unprocessed notifications, devices within reach, noise in the background. All of it is sending signals to your brain that this is a reactive space, not a creative one. Clean your space. Block inputs. Build an environment that says, "We're here to focus." The moment you do, your time quality increases without changing anything on the clock. Time is not just about the hours, it's about the density of those hours. You can sit for 6 hours and do what could have been done in 2, because your environment was fractured, your inputs were noisy, your thoughts were scattered, and your emotional state was unmanaged. Or you can sit for 90 minutes, fully focused, aligned, structured, and get more done than most people do in a full day. The difference is not time. It's alignment. It's internal and external alignment combined. Track your energy before and after each work session. Learn which activities drain you. Learn which ones fuel you. Don't just track time. Track state. What state were you in before you started? What state were you in after? What shifted it? What supported it? This is how you begin to manage energy, not as a vague concept, but as a metric. Managing your time is managing your state. If your state is low, everything takes longer. If your state is high, time bends around your decisions. Chapter 6. You don't rise by learning more. You rise by applying what you already know with relentless consistency. Most time is not lost in ignorance. It's lost in hesitation. It's lost in mental loops of planning, preparing, thinking, second-guessing, and overanalyzing. Everyone talks about wanting clarity, but clarity doesn't arrive because you wish for it. Clarity arrives because you create enough movement for feedback to surface. You want more certainty, then make more decisions. You want more momentum, then take more small steps. Not dramatic moves. Small ones. The ones you've been delaying. The ones that don't feel big enough to matter, but when stacked together, build a system that makes everything else easier. There is no time management without execution. And there is no execution without emotional regulation. Your ability to move consistently is not just about skill or strategy, it's about learning how to act in the presence of resistance. People think resistance is a sign to stop. It's not. Resistance is a compass. It points to what matters. It arises when you're close to building something that would actually change your reality. So instead of avoiding it, you learn to move through it. You don't fight it. You don't complain about it. You don't romanticize it. You notice it, you acknowledge it, and you work anyway. People lose days not because they don't care about their goals, but because they haven't built the emotional muscle to move without ideal conditions. They wake up tired and the day slips. They feel overwhelmed and nothing gets done. They get discouraged and delay again. But high performers don't build their schedules around how they feel. They build their feelings around how they schedule. They show up, not because they're always ready, but because they've trained themselves to stop relying on readiness. If you only move when things are easy, you will never be consistent enough to master your time. Time rewards people who reduce emotional interference. That means you build a routine so stable, so well-defined, that even on your worst day, your floor is still productive. Not your ceiling, your floor. The minimum standard you keep, even when things feel off, should be enough to maintain momentum. You don't rebuild from scratch every time something knocks you down. You never fall below a basic rhythm. Because the rhythm is built into you. You have fallback systems. You have recovery protocols. You know how to get back to baseline fast. This is what separates amateurs from professionals. Amateurs depend on motivation. Professionals depend on rhythm. If you want to own your time, stop needing to feel like it. Start acting like it. Your feelings matter, but they're not the main decision maker. Your structure is. Your rhythm is. Your system is. When you feel off, you still show up. You still complete the basics. You still maintain the core. Because the core protects the momentum. You don't collapse every time stress appears. You adjust. You adapt. You scale down if needed. But you keep moving. High-efficiency time use is built on constraints, not options. If you give yourself all day to do something, it will take all day. If you give yourself 45 minutes, you'll focus. You'll eliminate filler. You'll stop obsessing over perfection. You'll get to the point. Constraints are not restrictions, they are power tools. They force decisions. They prevent procrastination. They activate creative problem-solving. Instead of saying, "I need more time," start asking, "How can I do this with less?" Not to rush. To sharpen. To discipline your brain to focus. Time expands when you give yourself deadlines that require intensity. Stop leaving things open-ended. Start setting finish lines. And not just on major projects. On everything. Goals have end times. Deep work blocks have caps. Response windows have limits. You don't let tasks bleed endlessly across your day. You don't let a 30-minute email turn into a 2-hour spiral of doubt. You don't let one task stretch until it owns your entire morning. Time use must be precise, not vague. And precision starts with constraint. People think freedom means unlimited options. But real freedom is built from commitment. You commit to your structure. You commit to your top priorities. You commit to execution windows. You don't keep reopening the plan. You don't keep reshuffling everything just because the mood shifted. The more decisions you reevaluate, the less energy you have for action. You're not supposed to be constantly thinking about how to work. You're supposed to already know what the next step is. If your structure is clean, then your execution can be fast. Your calendar should not be a suggestion. It should be a reflection of your integrity. If it's on there, you do it. You don't move it unless something real breaks. You don't reschedule just because you don't feel like it. You don't cancel just because your brain told you it was hard. Every time you break a calendar commitment without a real reason, you train your mind to associate plans with softness. You teach your subconscious that nothing holds. That nothing matters. That everything is optional. And that creates chaos, even if your life looks structured on the outside. Time structure only works when you treat it as non-negotiable. Not harsh. Not rigid. But serious. Serious means you don't let emotions hijack execution. Serious means you show up because your goals require respect. Serious means you hold the line because you said you would. You want to reclaim your time? Reclaim your word. Reclaim the agreements you make with yourself. Reclaim the integrity of your calendar. Because if your word means nothing to you, your schedule means nothing to your progress. Stop multitasking during execution blocks. If it's deep work, it deserves your full attention. You don't check your phone between thoughts. You don't switch tabs to look something up unless it's mission critical. You don't dilute your focus by responding to unrelated messages mid-task. Fragmented attention kills momentum. It breaks the thread of thought. It slows cognition. It forces you to restart over and over. And restarting is expensive. Every time you re-enter a task, you burn time getting back into flow. Eliminate the cost. Guard the block. Protect your attention. Get real about your patterns. If you know you lose focus after 40 minutes, set a timer. Take a real break. Not a scroll break, a movement break. Get up. Walk. Breathe. Reset your system. Then re-enter with precision. You don't push through exhaustion and call it discipline. That's not sustainable. You don't reward yourself with distraction. You reward yourself with restoration. Restoration is not consumption. It's presence. It's silence. It's stillness. It's resetting your brain so it can perform again at a high level. Chapter 7. You will never respect your time until you stop allowing emotions to manage your schedule. Emotions are real, but they should not be in charge of how your day unfolds. If you let frustration, doubt, guilt, or fatigue set your pace, your time will never be consistent. You'll have great days followed by crashes. You'll produce when you feel inspired and freeze when discomfort appears. That is not a time problem. That is an emotional governance problem. You cannot expect structured results with unstable emotions. Your system must be stronger than your mood. That is how leaders build. That is how masters move. They do not need to feel ready. They move because they are grounded in rhythm, not controlled by reaction. Emotions are part of the system, but they are not the driver. The moment you realize that your brain will always try to keep you in comfort, you can stop being surprised by resistance. You can stop negotiating with it. You can stop pausing every time it shows up. The only way to make real use of your time is to see discomfort as a companion, not a signal to stop. Most people waste hours because they're trying to feel differently before they act. But the fastest way to shift how you feel is to move. Action regulates emotion. Execution recalibrates confidence. You don't wait for permission from your mood. You create momentum through clarity and commitment. You must have protocols for emotional interference. If your morning starts with anxiety, what's your reset? If your focus drops, what's your anchor? If your thoughts spiral, what's your pattern interrupt? If you feel overwhelmed, what's your narrowing strategy? You don't hope emotions don't show up. You plan for when they do. You build a system that gives you something to do when your energy is low, your drive is cracked, or your motivation is absent. That is where discipline becomes a shield, not a weapon. You use it to guard your time, not punish your feelings. Time is emotional. Not in its nature, but in how we respond to it. People delay hard conversations, not because they lack time, but because they're afraid of confrontation. They procrastinate decisions, not because they don't know the answer, but because they're afraid of consequences. They say yes to things they don't have time for, not because the task is important, but because they're afraid of letting someone down. The calendar doesn't reflect priorities, it reflects fears. You cannot fix time with tools. You fix time by becoming honest about where emotion overrides clarity. You can't say you value your time if you constantly allow guilt to rewrite your day. You can't say you value your focus if you let the opinions of others decide how you spend your hours. You can't say your time is sacred if you compromise it every time someone pushes back. Time management is boundary enforcement in action. Not just boundaries with others. Boundaries with your own impulses. Boundaries with the part of your mind that wants to feel better instead of do better. Boundaries with your default patterns that say later when your integrity says now. Train your emotional state the same way you train your execution. Don't just set goals for tasks. Set goals for how you respond to resistance. Set standards for how quickly you return to rhythm after a disruption. Set rules for how long you're allowed to stay stuck in self-doubt. People think high performance is about talent. It's about response time. It's about how fast you close the gap between distraction and refocus, between emotional dip and execution. The smaller that gap, the more time you recover. Not because you have more hours, but because you waste fewer of them spiraling. Learn to pause without breaking the flow. A pause is not a collapse. A reset is not a shutdown. You can pause, recalibrate, and return stronger. The problem is not the pause. The problem is when the pause turns into avoidance. Avoidance turns minutes into hours, hours into days, days into regret. That's how time evaporates. You cannot afford to pause without purpose. Every time you pause, ask yourself, what am I actually avoiding? What feeling am I trying not to feel? What truth am I trying not to face? Ask the real questions and you will recover faster. Protect your state the way you protect your schedule. You cannot schedule deep work while living in emotional chaos. You cannot create structure around someone who is always triggered by interruption. You must build stability inside. That's the real discipline. Not just blocking your calendar. Blocking your reactive impulses. The moment your mind says this is too hard, you don't negotiate with it. You redirect it. You don't let thoughts spiral without permission. You choose which thoughts stay and which ones go. You choose which feelings are allowed to interrupt execution. That is where time control really lives, in the gap between thought and behavior. Mental discipline is emotional freedom. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. You feel everything, but you act from the part of you that is anchored in truth. Not in fear. Not in fatigue. not in doubt. In truth. That's where the calendar becomes aligned with your highest self. That's where your time becomes a mirror of your standards. You don't move because you're anxious. You don't work because you're behind. You don't create because you're comparing. You move because it's what you said you would do. You move because this hour has one job, and that job is no longer optional. 1 hour of aligned action is worth 10 hours of reactive motion. Don't mistake activity for alignment. You can be busy all day and end up further behind. You can check every box and miss the only one that mattered. You can answer every message and produce nothing of value. You can serve everyone else and forget your own direction. This is not time use. This is time confusion. And confusion doesn't get solved by doing more. It gets solved by stopping long enough to remember what actually matters. If you feel disconnected from your time, the answer is not to work harder. The answer is to slow down, get still, and ask better questions. What's actually required right now? What's the one thing that if I did it, would make the rest easier or unnecessary? What am I pretending not to know? What am I avoiding by staying busy? These questions do not take time to answer. They take courage. Most people don't lack awareness. They lack the courage to act on what they already know. Chapter 8. You do not rise to the level of your potential. You fall to the level of your systems. Potential means nothing if it's not structured. Ideas are useless without execution. Inspiration will leave the moment resistance shows up, but systems remain. Systems don't care how you feel. They don't wait for your emotional permission. They hold the line when your motivation fades. They simplify what feels overwhelming. They eliminate the need to constantly think about what comes next. When you're tired, your system decides. When you're unfocused, your system leads. When you're scattered, your system restores structure. You are not supposed to rely on self-control every day. You're supposed to build environments and rhythms that remove the need for constant discipline. Most people waste time trying to be perfect. They spend more energy trying to find the best way than they do executing anything at all. But high performers don't chase perfect, they chase consistency. They build processes that are boring but reliable. They show up when nobody's clapping. They follow routines that don't feel exciting. Because excitement is not the metric, repeatability is. It doesn't matter how great your process looks on paper if you can't repeat it under pressure. Time is not optimized through inspiration. Time is optimized through stability. And stability comes from removing the chaos that distracts you from what you already know to do. Simplicity is the ultimate force multiplier. The more complex your schedule, your tools, your task system, the more friction you create. Friction is the enemy of execution. When you open your calendar and feel overwhelmed, that's a system failure. When you look at your task list and can't prioritize, that's not laziness, it's poor architecture. Your system should be so clear, so simple, so well-defined that execution becomes automatic. Not robotic, but precise. You wake up and know what's next. You sit down and don't need to decide. You end the day knowing what tomorrow looks like. That's not about control, it's about clarity. Because the less time you spend deciding, the more time you spend building. Remove decision fatigue by standardizing your repeat tasks. If it happens every day, it should be structured. If it happens every week, it should be scheduled. You shouldn't be thinking about when to do deep work. It's already on the calendar. You shouldn't be deciding when to plan your week. It's already locked in. You shouldn't be reevaluating when to follow up, when to rest, when to reset. Build a rhythm once, then live inside of it. Upgrade it only when you have enough data to justify the change. But stop editing your schedule every time you feel resistance. Structure does not need your permission. It needs your commitment. Automate what drains your time. Delegate what drains your focus. Batch what interrupts your flow. Delete what no longer aligns. Don't build systems that are clever. Build systems that are invisible. Systems that run in the background. Systems that keep your day in order without stealing your attention. If you have to think about it constantly, it's not a system. If it requires daily mental energy to maintain, it's not stable. A strong system reduces questions, removes uncertainty, and frees you to focus on what only you can do. You must create protocols for chaos. You must plan for pressure. You must prepare for disruption. Because life will interrupt you. Plans will break. People will cancel. Energy will dip. Focus will falter. If your system only works on perfect days, it's a fantasy. Real systems account for setbacks. They build in margin. They create fallback options. They don't collapse when something breaks. They adapt. You need contingency plans for your most important habits. What happens when you miss your morning block? What's the backup if your focus crashes? Where do you go when your environment is compromised? Most people don't lose time because they failed. They lose it because they didn't have a protocol for when things go off track. Build rules for your time like you build habits for your health. You don't negotiate your values. You don't reason with your future. You enforce your structure because it's sacred. Time systems are not about intensity. They are about return on energy. You measure your success not by how much you do, but by how effectively your system runs when you're not at your best. When you're distracted, tired, or demotivated, what's left standing? What holds you up? What keeps moving forward without you micromanaging it? Systematize your goals. Break every outcome into repeatable inputs. If your goal is to write, don't schedule write. Schedule draft 500 words. If your goal is to build content, don't schedule create. Schedule record one video. Systems are specific, not vague, not abstract. You don't chase inspiration. You break goals into tasks that are clear enough to start without thought. You reduce activation energy. You shrink the space between intention and action. You make the first step so obvious, so clear, so defined that starting is no longer a mental burden. Your system should tell you what to do when clarity disappears. You shouldn't have to think twice. You're overwhelmed. Go to your review process. You're unfocused. Start the reset protocol. You're falling behind. Pull up your weekly reflection. You're slipping. Open your tracker. Systems don't erase discomfort. They erase confusion. They give you something to do when your thoughts are spinning. They give you a path when your motivation is missing. They give you clarity when your schedule feels heavy. And that is what time management really is: the ability to remain calm, clear, and consistent regardless of the chaos around you. Most people overestimate how much they can change in 1 week and underestimate how much consistency changes everything in 6 months. But systems protect that consistency. Without them, every change feels forced. Every task feels random. Every week feels like starting over. But when systems are strong, execution becomes identity. It's no longer something you force, it's who you are. You are the person who plans every Sunday. You are the person who does deep work every morning. You are the person who resets every Friday. You are the person who tracks, reflects, and improves. And when execution becomes identity, time stops being the enemy. It becomes your amplifier. Chapter 9. Time does not bend for the uncommitted. It opens up for those who remove confusion, who stop dancing around decisions, who stop pretending they're too busy when what they're really doing is avoiding what matters. Clarity is a decision. It is not something you find. It is something you decide to have. And most of the time, clarity only shows up after you've moved. Not before. Not while you sit around thinking. Not while you wait for the perfect plan. It comes once you commit. It shows up after the first block of focus time. After the first action that you stop delaying. After you stop managing every feeling and start acting like someone who values their future more than their current mood. There's no time to waste on indecision. That's where most time leaks begin. Not in distraction. In mental loops. People stuck in should I or shouldn't I. People reliving the same choice 10 different ways. People running simulations in their minds of all the things that could go wrong before they ever take one real step. And those simulations take hours. Hours of creative energy. Hours of clarity. Hours that could have gone into building. That could have gone into execution. That could have turned hesitation into actual progress. Stop chasing clarity and start generating it. Clarity comes from structure. Clarity comes from reflection. Clarity comes from removing all the inputs that confuse you. You cannot be clear while consuming 100 different voices a day. You cannot be clear while checking your phone every 10 minutes. You cannot be clear while living in reaction to everyone else's urgency. You must create the conditions for clarity. Which means fewer voices. Fewer inputs. More stillness. More reflection. More silence in your schedule. Because you cannot hear what matters while you're overstimulated. Remove your need to respond to everything instantly. Not every message is an emergency. Not every notification requires your time. You need to build response windows. Structured times when you check messages, when you respond to people, when you engage with noise. But the rest of the time, you are building. You are executing. You are focused. Because if you let the world interrupt you 20 times a day, you are no longer in control of your time. You are being managed by the collective dysfunction of the people around you. Control your inputs or they will control you. Time leaks through your mind before it ever leaks through your schedule. That's why calendar control is never enough. If your mind is not clear, it doesn't matter how blocked your hours are. You will still waste them on low-quality tasks. You will still fill them with urgency instead of alignment. You will still confuse motion with progress. You need to clean your mental environment first. That means not just scheduling time, but protecting it with rules that are enforced by your values, not by how others feel about your rules. Time discipline requires emotional strength. If you can't tolerate disappointing others, you will never protect your schedule. If you need people to always understand your boundaries, you will never be consistent. If you are still seeking external permission to follow your structure, you are not free. You are building your time on approval, not on truth. And that is why it keeps falling apart. Because truth does not need consensus. And clarity does not need applause. You do not need to explain your schedule. You need to keep it. You do not need everyone to agree. You need to act like someone who has already decided what matters. That is what builds time power. Not force. Not speed. Precision. Consistency. The ability to say no without guilt. The ability to focus without apology. The ability to move without external permission. You don't build a schedule to please people. You build it to protect what you are building. And if you are still compromising that for the sake of comfort, you are choosing short-term harmony over long-term alignment. Time favors the focused. You want more results in less time? Then cut more of what doesn't matter. Cut the checking. Cut the looping. Cut the comparing. Cut the need to constantly feel good before you do the next task. You do not need comfort, you need direction. You do not need another voice in your head, you need to trust the one you've been avoiding. You do not need better tools, you need cleaner execution. And you cannot execute if you're still unsure who you are when no one is watching. You must stop building your days around being seen. Build them around the work. Build them around the process. Build them around the rhythm that no one claps for, but that builds results when everyone else quits. Because you don't need more applause, you need more rhythm. Rhythm builds time freedom. Because rhythm eliminates guesswork. You wake up and it's time to move. You show up and the work begins. Not because you feel like it, but because that's what the hour is for. Time is not just about what you do, it's about how you feel while doing it. That's why pressure does not always create performance. Sometimes it creates panic. You must learn to shift your internal state on demand. That means learning how to breathe when you want to rush. That means learning how to focus when your mind wants to escape. That means learning how to move slowly when your emotions tell you to push. Slowness is not laziness. It's precision. You are not here to rush. You are here to build. And building requires calm focus, not frantic output. Frantic people waste more time fixing their mistakes than they do building. Focused people build slowly and spend less time fixing. That's the difference. Rushing always costs more. Calm execution builds results that last. You cannot call yourself effective if your actions are always reactive. Learn to be still. Learn to work without panic. Learn to schedule without urgency. Time mastery is calm, clean, intentional. It does not come from adrenaline. It comes from repeatability. Chapter 10. Time does not get easier to manage as you grow. It gets more complex. The more responsibility you carry, the more demands you receive. The more you produce, the more people want from you. The more visible you become, the more inputs will compete for your attention. That's why time management is not a skill you master once and leave behind. It's a discipline you revisit daily. It evolves with you. It deepens with your commitments. It sharpens as you grow. And if you don't evolve your system with your responsibility, time will become a weight instead of a weapon. The people who seem to have time for everything are not gifted. They are ruthless with what gets access. They don't let anyone schedule their day for them. They don't answer every call. They don't respond to every message. They don't start their day in reaction. They create filters. They protect their energy. They build fences around their focus. And they enforce those fences without apology. Because they know one truth: time does not come back once it is given. There is no refund for distraction. There is no credit for potential. You either use it or you lose it. And what you tolerate will keep defining how your hours feel. There's a difference between being busy and being burdened. Busy is full, but directed. Burdened is full, but aimless. Most people are not tired from doing too much. They're tired from doing too much of the wrong thing. From working on tasks that drain instead of build. From reacting instead of deciding. From giving energy to things that have no return. They end their day exhausted but dissatisfied, not because they didn't work, but because what they worked on didn't align. You can grind all day and still feel empty. Because time spent is not the same as time invested. Investment means your hours are building something. Spending means your hours are bleeding out. If your calendar is full but your goals are stalled, your system is broken. You don't need to push harder. You need to reevaluate where your hours are going. Open your calendar. Look at last week. What did you do repeatedly that didn't produce real results? What meetings went too long? What tasks were done out of obligation instead of alignment? What distractions keep repeating? What emotional patterns keep stealing your morning? Don't look for more hours. Look for patterns. Patterns are the keys to compression. When you see what repeats, you know where to adjust. Time compression is not about rushing. It's about removing waste. You get more done in less time not because you move faster, but because you stop doing things that shouldn't be done at all. You cut the fluff. You remove the performance. You stop scheduling for appearance and start scheduling for outcome. If it doesn't produce a result, it doesn't get your prime energy. Not every task is equal. Not every meeting is necessary. Not every request needs to be honored. You must prioritize based on impact, not noise. Most people confuse urgency with importance. Urgency screams. Importance is quiet. Urgency is someone else's chaos. Importance is your deepest priority. If you always serve the urgent, you'll never protect the important. And if you never protect the important, you'll live in a cycle of false momentum, always moving, never arriving. You want to break that cycle? Start asking better questions. Not what do I have to do, but what will actually move the needle. Not what do people expect, but what produces results. Not what feels urgent, but what aligns with my future. Every hour has a cost, and most people spend their highest value hours on their lowest return activities. They give their freshest focus to reactive tasks. They check notifications during their prime window. They start their day in chaos and wonder why clarity never arrives. But you don't get clarity by accident. You create it through decisions. You must decide when your highest focus window is. You must decide what gets scheduled there. You must decide what tasks never touch that space. That time belongs to your top goals. It belongs to the projects that build long-term results. It does not belong to inboxes, meetings, or shallow work. That time is where the real work happens. And if you give that time away, you're trading legacy for noise. Rebuild your schedule from the ground up. Not based on convenience, based on power. Anchor your day around your peak hours. Protect that block like it's your job, because it is. Every day, there is one window where you're sharper, more alert, more creative. Use that window for the most demanding work. Use it for thinking, building, designing, leading. Don't waste it on anything reactive. Don't give it to your inbox. Don't check messages. Don't multitask. Don't break it. If you protect that window consistently, your productivity will multiply without increasing effort. Because quality execution compounds faster than quantity ever will. Learn to stack your work. Task switching is a time killer. You lose clarity every time you change context. You lose depth. You lose presence. You burn energy shifting gears. Instead, batch. Group similar tasks together. Design your day so your brain stays in one lane for as long as possible. Don't check email 20 times. Check it twice. Don't reply to every message as it comes. Respond in blocks. Don't bounce between projects. Build in deep work sessions. Every transition costs you. Reduce transitions. Increase momentum. That's how you create time space. And stop glorifying multitasking. It's not efficient. It's fragmented. It looks productive, but it's scattered. You're half present everywhere. You're delivering shallow work that needs to be redone. You're burning focus on switching, not solving. True productivity is monotasking with intensity. It's full focus on one thing until it's done. Then the next. Then the next. It's simple. It's powerful. And it's rare, because most people are addicted to being distracted. They think being busy is the same as being effective. But only focus delivers results. Only depth moves real outcomes forward. Chapter 12. There is no such thing as neutral time. Every hour is building something or breaking something. Every decision you make about how to spend your time is either bringing you closer to alignment or further into chaos. There is no such thing as harmless distraction. Every distraction has a cost. Every interruption has a ripple. Every delay is a withdrawal from your future. When you understand this fully, not intellectually but operationally, you begin to think differently about how you structure your day. You stop asking what you can fit in. You start asking what you must protect. You stop reacting to the day. You start designing the day around energy, values, clarity, and precision. Time has never been the problem. Lack of direction is the problem. Emotional noise is the problem. Permission seeking is the problem. Indecision is the problem. Incomplete priorities, undefined outcomes, shallow systems, leaky focus, those are the real threats. And until you confront those directly, your day will always be ruled by what pulls hardest, not what matters most. You don't take your time back by working faster. You take it back by operating from a foundation that doesn't bend to pressure. You take it back by filtering everything through a question that most people never ask. Does this action honor the version of me that I say I'm becoming? If the answer is no, you don't schedule it. If the answer is no, you don't say yes to it. If the answer is no, you don't give it your prime hours. Because the truth is this, most people protect their money more than they protect their time. But money can return. Time cannot. Every just one more scroll moment compounds into hours over weeks. Every "I'll get to it later" mindset costs you double when you have to catch up under pressure. Every task that lives in your head instead of on your calendar quietly taxes your focus. And every decision you avoid today will demand interest tomorrow. You must stop pretending that time management is about productivity hacks. It's about integrity. It's about internal congruence. It's about aligning your behaviors with your declared values. You cannot say your health matters and keep skipping your recovery. You cannot say your goals matter and keep starting your day with randomness. You cannot say your focus matters and still live in constant reaction to notifications. You must either adjust your words or adjust your systems. But you cannot keep living in contradiction and expect peace to coexist with that confusion. The work is never just in the calendar. The real work is in your psychology. It's in your beliefs about time. It's in how you treat your attention when no one is watching. It's in what you tolerate when your structure is tested. It's in what you prioritize when emotions are running high. Because when the pressure hits, you will not rise to the level of your plan, you will fall to the level of your preparation. And if your preparation is based on ideas that only work when you feel good, your schedule will collapse under stress. The real test of your time system is not how it works on a perfect day, it's how it performs when things get messy. You must become the kind of person whose structure holds, even when things break. Even when the plan changes. Even when nothing is ideal. Even when energy is low. Even when everyone else around you is disorganized. You don't need perfection, you need rhythm. You need fallback points. You need a baseline that keeps the core of your day anchored no matter what the world throws at you. That's how professionals operate. That's how leaders move. That's how results scale. Time is not about pressure. It's about placement. It's about putting your energy in the right place, at the right time, for the right reason. It's not about cramming more into your day. It's about doing less of what never mattered. It's about stripping away everything that competes with your peace. You do not need another productivity app. You need to be honest about what you're doing with the time you already have. You need to sit with your distractions and ask what they are hiding. You need to feel the weight of your leaks and let it be heavier than your excuses. Because until you do, you will stay trapped in a cycle of false urgency, always moving, rarely advancing. There's a point where you have to stop planning and start living like someone who values what they've been given. You have to stop talking about clarity and start acting with it. You have to stop trying to find time and start guarding it with structure that doesn't bend every time life throws an emotion at you. You don't need more motivation. You need systems. You need anchors. You need internal standards that don't collapse the moment someone else has a problem or a need or an opinion about how you should be spending your time. Time mastery is self-respect in practice. It's telling yourself the truth about what you really want and then refusing to abandon that truth because of fear, discomfort, or confusion. You can't keep saying yes to everything and expecting to feel aligned. You can't keep reacting to everything and expect your day to feel spacious. You can't keep skipping the foundations and expect to scale. What you schedule, you become. What you track, you improve. What you protect, you grow. The future doesn't belong to the smartest or the fastest. It belongs to those who stop making excuses and build systems that reflect who they actually are, not who they hope to become someday. You don't need to do more. You need to decide more clearly. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to move with fewer contradictions. You don't need longer hours. You need cleaner agreements. You don't need to feel ready. You need to move anyway. You don't need the perfect plan. You need a plan that survives discomfort. And you need to be the kind of person who stops breaking their rhythm every time the external world gets noisy. You are not here to serve everyone else's chaos. You are not here to lose yourself in obligation. You are not here to keep redeciding who you are every Monday morning. You are here to execute. You are here to lead your day with presence. You are here to become the kind of person who builds peace through structure, direction through rhythm, and meaning through alignment. There is nothing more spiritual than honoring your time. There is nothing more powerful than knowing where your attention goes and why. There is nothing more liberating than living a day that reflects who you really are instead of who the world told you to be.